on this Saturday evening. Oh, yeah. Facebook is looking good. Finals. Yes. Let's get Facebook. Yes, sir. IG. Socials are good. Let's get Twitter going on. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope your weekend is going according to plan. I've had a good weekend so far. Got a chance to referee today for a good cause. Fortunate to do so. And yeah, it's good to see this nice weather coming in. Summertime. Right? That classic. So I hope everybody is doing okay and more than okay, right? Not just surviving, but we aim to thrive. Isn't that so? But as we do, welcome to SandCity Sports. Ho! To the business. Yes, indeed. Get this episode moving on. Just got to hold on. I got to mute right quick. Take this quick call right quick. Appreciate that, folks. Times you get the calls and you gotta check in real quick. You know, it's the timing. You call people. I called before, you know, and I said, oh, they weren't available. And then, next thing you know, that's as soon as you get things going, then you get the call back. But so you make that, not the ideal, not the optimal start to the show, but we make it work nonetheless. You gotta make the time, particularly for the family and our close friends. But we are ready now. You understand? We're ready. SandCity, Cape Cod Kid, you know what it is. Go! Thank you so much for checking in with us on this Saturday. We got N.B.A. Finals Game 7 on the horizon. One underdog team, people didn't think they should be there. They said, why not us? And the young Lions of Oklahoma City trying to prove we run it back. When we start the show, we gotta come back and let it breathe. Hey, SandCity. So we need to discuss what's gonna happen. Game 7, you go either way. Indiana Pacers hungry, Oklahoma City hungry to their first championship for both of these franchises. Also, the draft on the horizon. We appreciate you And so yes, um, there's game seven. Um, it's not the critic that counts. It's not the man that points out where the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better, right? The credit belongs to the man in the arena. Shout out to Teddy Roosevelt. Shout out to Ken Burns, one of my heroes, documentary filmmaker. Okay, go ahead and check out the Ken Burns, the Roosevelt's Ken Burns documentary amongst his archives, which are extensive, right? But it's the man in the arena. Okay, SandCity, we starting tonight hot. Everybody has a plan, right? What? You got that plan until what? Till you understand? You got the plan until you get punched in the mouth. Okay, that's Mike Tyson. Everybody got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Okay, and then we'll see. The best laid plans of I'm on one tonight. The best laid plans of mice and men. Okay, but when you get into the thick of things, when you get into the and I went and bumped it. Hopefully my shot is correct. When you get into the thick of things, that's when you see. That's the true test, right? And so I picked Indian 7. I've said it. I'm sticking with my pick. But I'm of the mindset. I'm kind of you know still furious about my New York Knicks. Furious is the correct word, and how just we didn't force a game 7, and then just the lunacy that has transpired since then, getting rid of an elite coach that brought prosperity. This idea that the grass is greener on the other side. Um, I don't think it's greener. I don't think it's greener. Okay, and this the Jason Kidd saga now, and he might, and it's because honestly, I think Dallas said, heck no, Jay, we're not gonna let you talk to Jason Kidd, but I don't know if Jason Kidd's feeling what's going on in Dallas. So okay, Tom Tibbs is my coach. There's no two ways about that. There's no reason why he couldn't come back and got in the second year. I don't care who said what to who. I don't care who said what, when they said it, how they said it, people being in their feeling. I don't care about none of that. It was a ridiculous knee-jerk reaction. Get rid of Tibbs. Preposterous, outlandish, borderline shameful. Okay. And now this, the Jason Kidd angle is the only, and it's just upset as I remain. And by the way, shout out, if I can't be a part of the greatest, I got to be the greatest myself. Let me hold on. We got to stop sharing the screen. Got to stop sharing the screen so y'all can. Okay, my shot is still good. My shot is still good. Sometimes I bump the. You know what I mean? My shot is still the way it needs to be. You understand? I got the. You can see the one television. I got my. You know what I mean? You can see I make sure I got my beard oils. I'm a proud member of the beard brand. Proud beardsman. You know what I'm saying? Proud beardsman. Shout out to Beard Brand. I think it's called Beard Alliance now. Some of the best videos. There's so much great stuff on YouTube. Um, but really got locked in with Beard Brand as I was on. I'm on my sixth year journey, sixth or seventh. Sometimes everybody's beard grows different, but this is very important to me. I said it, say it again. Proud beardsman. Also had to get had to come in and do the episode. Went to the barber the other day. Had to get my geometry correct. Had to get my lineup correct for this episode, and certainly going to be on tomorrow. And then also the tournament today. I had to get out there and referee in a local tournament for a really good cause out in Mashpee. Um, so I had to come correct. Had to come correct. But the shot is good. You see the beard oils, the vitamins and everything else like that. Television, books and everything else like that on the other side. Um, yeah, my next, the Jason Kidd thing. I hope it happens. I'm not gonna be petty. Um, you don't wanna repay nonsense and then have more nonsense. But Tom Thibodeau's a head coach. He's an NBA head coach. Um, he deserves another opportunity. He'll get another opportunity. There's certainly detractors out there. They can go kick rocks, as far as I'm concerned. Talking about least favorite coach in the NBA 3 years in a run, and all those people are on Cancun. They stay your behind on the beach. Okay, have another pina colada. All right, because you're behind left the arena a long time ago. Is my feeling. All these people, oh Tibbs, he doesn't smile at me and he doesn't pat me on the. He builds men. That's what he does. What is Tom Thibodeau? What is Tom Izzo doing? Michigan State. He builds men. Right, Draymond Green, second round pick, borderline, borderline Hall of Famer. I don't think Draymond Green's a Hall of Famer. Um, on his own merits, he hasn't shown me. He was an important piece on a dynastic team, but Draymond's not a Hall. Like Steph Curry's a Hall of Famer. Kevin Durant is a Hall of Famer. Right, Clay, 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 right. And this idea of the Hall of Fame kind of being the Hall of Friends or the Hall of Good, I don't have time for that. Right, Lou Merloni, WEEI, OMF, which they should have never taken off the air. Right, OMF was that. I loved OMF. Merloni, Ordway, Merloni. Let me get it right. Ordway, Merloni, and Fourier. That was my jam. Getting out of work, throw them guys on, and they did a good show. Do we have the same? Myself and the OMF crew? Politics? Dare I say no? We don't. Do we see every situation socially, culturally, politically the same way? Dare I say no? Right? Their views on certain things were not my views on certain things, but they had an awesome show. Okay, so I think that's one of the things that makes me passionate about doing this. That's one of the things that's great about sports. Is it a cure all for society? I keep coming back to that. No, sometimes we think it's not a cure all for the human condition and all of society's ills. Um, but there's a lot of good that it does do, and it brings a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't spend time together, and you get a chance to see right people putting their best foot forward, and you develop that some common ground. Okay, is it the end all be all? No, but you develop that common ground, and it's wonderful. And it's a beautiful thing. So that's how I felt about OMF. It's ridiculous that they took that show off the air. As far as I'm concerned, I don't who and I just thought and we're gonna talk a little bit. And yes, I'm getting back to the finals. I haven't forgotten where we started. We're getting back to Indy O.K.C. and what's going to happen tomorrow. My views, so on and forth. A lot of platitudes, a lot of quotations. But we're going to get back to the specifics of that game. But right, as far as I'm concerned, OMF should still be on. I appreciate it, Benito. Appreciate it, my man. Let me know about any good, bad, or indifferent. But I certainly am encouraged by the support. And then if any topics, right? Any topics people want to get into, I'm basketball heavy today. Baseball is going on right now. It's crazy. My first couple Cape League games. I'm a huge Cape League fan, so I go to the games. I support my Harbor Hawks, 1,000%. But not coming from the baseball tradition. Cape League is like the Drew League for basketball people. If I lived in Cal, I would be at those Drew League games. At those Pro-Am games. Or if I lived in, Nevada, I would be at Summer League. All right. But I'm here on, sunny peninsula on the coast that happens to have, one of the best, if not the best minor league in all of baseball. Right. I think it's like, what is it? Single A? I don't know. It's not triple A, but the roster or the alumni for the Cape League is just bananas. Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts, just on and on and on and on. So it's amazing. Again, not knowing who the heck these people are, right? Like I would know the Stars of Tomorrow, which we're going to talk a little bit about as well in this episode. The Stars of Tomorrow are out in Colorado right now. So AJ DeBansa, the pride of Brockton, Massachusetts, he's out in Colorado right now getting ready for the FIBA World Cup. It's a World Cup year. So and the Team USA, which is the future lottery picks, right? The Boozer, Cameron Boozer, is taking his talents to Duke next year. You're going to be seeing a lot of him. Is out there. So they're in Colorado doing the mini camp and getting ready to go for FIBA. And these are going to be the guys that AJ DeBansa is going to make his millions next year, $7-8 million. Let's get AJ for you on the screen as I'm going in this direction. What's going on, Chris? I did see that. My man Chris, he's this guy, this is a connection, you know what I mean? This is like a brother from another right now. This is my man Chris is out on the left coast. He said I'm hitting that Drew League game. You know what I mean? It is, even though I'm on the East Coast, um, dear friend of mine lived on the West Coast for many years, and he would go out, when he was in LA, my man D Tomp, he would go out to the Drew League games and all the different sporting events. Um, so that would be, who knows what the future. I like, Massachusetts, the Northeast, but I'm still youngish. So if I took my talents elsewhere, to the left coast, to the south, wherever that wherever, I would be I would be that guy going to those games, loving it. Yes, we have to. I just saw that John Jones retired, which is wild. Um, that's what Unc and Ocho are talking about. Shout out to Nightcap. We don't play or hate. We congratulate. So they're diving into that. We will touch on that, please, people. If you have insights or opinions, it's what I'm not just, and we're gonna continue on. But in terms of John Jones' retirement, my thing is I hope it's on his own terms because he wants to step away for whatever reason. He was this, obviously, right? A lot of quotes, but that's just the way this episode is shaking out. Another Ken Burns quote that I got to give to you. They say, "Good feather is as light." Excuse me, good feather. Who's this guy? Good fortune. Good fortune is as light as a feather, and few men can carry it. Good fortune is as light as a feather, and few men can carry it. That's again Ken Burns. That's from his Ernest Hemingway documentary, right? Um, I look at John Jones, supremely talented, invincible champion, right? For me, that again, talking about sports is not going to cure. Sports will not cure you. Sports doesn't cure us. Okay, so it's 30. He's 37. It's time for you stepping away. But I had it. He came back and made some noise. So he was the great champion. Then had to step away. Because he was having a lot of issues outside of the octagon. Okay, and then the absence made the heart grow fonder, which I see, and I don't mind. I see it in the young athletes, who it's two things with the young athletes. First of all, some of them get burnt out, which I didn't really think about because I'm just a sports nut, and I don't really, because they don't, that's one of the arguments that I've heard that really impressed me about young athletes playing multiple sports just so they don't get burnt out of one sport. LeBron makes that point, and it's well taken. I don't, I don't know. Okay, so but I think people say they're getting burnt out of basketball. That's when I think you need to have, yup, Chris, jazz and baseball. You're talking my language. Jazz, taking you down to the New Orleans and the tradition and Louis Armstrong and Wynton Marsalis. Also, if a great series um, that really learned me a lot, and obviously, if I say David Simon's name, I'm talking about greatness, right? David Simon, The Wire. So if I mention David Simon, greatness is right there. But the series that came after The Wire, the Treme, if you like The Wire and you haven't seen the Treme, you're doing yourself a disservice because the same quality is there. It's not The Wire, it's not, but it's almost like it's a Breaking Bad to a Better Call Saul or a Cheers to Frasier. So and it's set in New Orleans and really, it's strong. And then Ken Burns baseball, just stop it. All 9 innings. Then he came back and did a 10th inning. It's out of this world. I was actually what I learned about didn't know what I learned about Babe Ruth through Ken Burns baseball. Understanding that he was a troubled kid, lonely kid, grew up in an orphanage. Father was a bartender, and he was just getting in trouble from an early age, and his family just sent him away. And the priests and the nuns and the goodwill really raised him, and that's how we learned baseball. Um, But again, the problems that he had later on in life, I'm talking about Babe Ruth. You can see with it, because he just did not have the right, didn't have the structure. And this is going to come all the way back to John Jones, and right, and this is something that I kick myself, frankly. Let's get AJ DeBanza up for you on the screen. The pride of Brockton, Massachusetts. I got to talk about AJ. Really proud of AJ. I say really proud like he's a family member. He's out there, Team USA right now, but there is a point of pride when talking about AJ DeBanza because you know he's a guy that came up playing on the grassroots circuit, right? I just told you I was refereeing today, out in Mashpee. I would be refereeing when AJ was eighth grader, ninth grader, because he transferred out for his sophomore year. But he went to his first year of prep school. He was at St. Sebastian's out in like Needham before going to Prolific Prep and then ending up at Utah Prep. Let's get AJ at Utah Prep. It's not the best picture. Hold on, let's see if I can get a better picture. It's not the best picture of him. And right, kid from Brockton, Massachusetts. Maybe this is the best the picture, I think, since he is right now out there doing work for Team USA. Let's get this picture, right? But he's from the city of champions. Well, that's what we call Brockton in the Commonwealth. Call it the city of champions, based on the fact that it's the home of the Rock, that being Rocky Marciano, and it's the home of Marvelous, that being Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Okay, so if one city can produce those two champions, goodness gracious, 18 things going on this page. God almighty. I don't even know if I can stay here. There's so much nonsense. Well, that's AJ DeBanza. And hopefully we can get rid of the zillions of ads. I don't know. All right. Hopefully it'll do. I got to X out some of these tabs. Yes, and we are going to get back to Oklahoma City. Hopefully these can hit the bricks. I got to X out some of the tab. I'm getting a little bit of lag. Now more freaking. What are we looking like over here? All right, you can see AJ, and then unfortunately we got like 18 million ads. Yeah, Chris, and that's where I was going next. Talking about, and I'm just gonna hold on because I'm sensing a little bit too much lag, so I gotta X out some tabs here. I gotta X out a few tabs. Come back. We'll get that back in action. And let me just come over here. I think it's because this. I'm just gonna X this guy out. We're gonna get AJ back. Too much stuff playing. And we'll see if we get AJ back. All right, I can dig it. Doing better. Still a little bit of lag. I'm sensing here. We power through it. All right, so we're good. X this out. X that out. You can see AJ. That's who we're discussing. And yeah, he did commit to BYU, secured himself a bag in the realm of $7 million, $8 million. And BYU was not in the mix. But you start, you know, the NIL world that we're living in now. College finally, they're the last of the party, saying that they're going to pay players, which they resisted hook, line, and sinker since time immemorial. And now that the horse is all the way out of the barn and they've lost complete control, now they're okay. Now we'll play players and try to, bring college sports back into a little bit, transfer portal is gone. It's not that the players are getting paid. The transfer portal has just gone bananas. So that's as much of an issue. It's not necessarily NIL. It's that, how do you get a 4-year degree when you go to 4 different schools? It's just not making sense in that capacity. Okay, but AJ got all his money, right? Um, and it's a situation, you know, I respect how he and his family have handled it. Whereas like his family and he to make the decisions. Not this agent, not that coach, not if you want to talk turkey, you sit down with his dad, Ace, AJ, his mom, like you, okay. You don't, we're not having this coach and no. All right, we're here now. This is the deal. But if you want to make we're taking offers. Okay, we're gonna hear what people are saying. This whole thing, yeah, you got to have loyalty and you got to, you know what I mean. But I'm gonna get my market value as well. Okay, so you're not gonna throw some loyalty, and finesse me and make me, because you gave me, you gave a little bit of seed money. Now I'm supposed to be overly grateful that this is what happens in youth and grassroots basketball. Okay, whereas individuals are frankly taken advantage of. Go ahead and check out At All Costs, a very good documentary. Okay, but AJ, pride of Brockton, Massachusetts, super proud here in the Commonwealth. But how he has navigated, and again, he started playing for Expressions, which is a Nike program out of Boston. Okay, so that's how we came to know him coming up through the ranks. And then he went to a local prep school here, as I said, St. Sebastian's. Then he took his talents to Prolific Prep. Then he took his talents there from Prolific Prep to Utah Prep. Did he, it's just the point of fact is, I don't know if he stayed up at night while he was living in Brockton saying, I want to go to BYU. That's my dream school. I don't think that's how it happened. I think that Utah Prep came in and made him. I didn't remember Jabari Parker almost committed to BYU. I thought he was hook, line, and sinker. Jabari Parker coming out of Simeon. All right, now you're talking my language. You're talking about the Chicago Public League. You're talking Hoop Dreams. So you know what I mean. You got me. You got me thinking about the late great Benjamin. Benji Wilson. Okay. So go first of all, do yourself a favor. Go ahead and check out Hoop Dreams if you haven't seen it. I don't care if I'm dating myself. It's an all-time classic. Um, Chicago Public League, greatest public high school league in the country, possibly, right? Even with all this prep school stuff going on, Chicago Public still stands the test of time. Talking about Isaiah Thomas, D Wade from the Shai. Okay, talked about Ben Wilson, Derrick Rose, Terry Cummings. The list goes on, and Doc Rivers. The list goes on and on and on. Obviously, Chicago's third largest city, so you're gonna have hoopers. But Jabari Smith, BYU might have been in the mix, but being from the Shai, and he did go to Duke. He was supposed to be the next LeBron, right? In terms of how he was that phenom. Um, but I saw him always leaning just because Coach K is a Chicago guy. So obviously, John Shire, current coach at Duke, who's doing a really good job. They were the best team in the Final Four. Okay, that makes sense. Yep, Jabari. You coming from the Mormon faith. I think that's right. It's hard to forget Anthony Davis, who started off as a guard. Then he had his mango season. AD was 6'1", Chicago, just hooper. Come back for a sophomore year, he's 6'9". You can see the Chicago in his game. Chicago play all around players, right? The game just known for well-rounded, two-way passing, scoring. Antoine Walker. Yeah, let's go on and on. So yeah, that reminds me. That's you know based on the background of his parents. That's why BYU was a consideration for Jabari, but he ended up taking his talents um, to Duke and moving forward from there. Okay, but credit, how AJ is navigating. BYU is going to be in a lot of games. People are going to get to know them if they weren't otherwise familiar, because they're going to have the odds-on favorites be the number one overall pick. And it goes from there, right? Make an offer. You would have thought AJ was leaning towards Bama or leaning towards Carolina or leaning towards, make him an offer. Right? I remember it was like Herschel Walker or might have been Bo Jackson. I think it might have been Bo Jackson that ended up going to Auburn because the Alabama coach told him, like, well, you're going to come in and and he was like, Auburn coach said, you're coming in and we're building this thing around you. I think I'm going to Auburn. That's the whole, check out the greatest that never was about Marcus Dupree. When you have, that's the thing, if you're a great coach and you have a system, but then you have like a savant, an actual prodigy, which Bo Jackson clearly was. Marcus Dupree, go ahead and check the film. Like he was special. Not because now everybody, but these people actually special. And you have to you got to work around, right? That's what we've learned the hard way in New England. Patriot way, Bill Belichick, it was Brady. It was Brady. All right. So you can't mess around with greatness. Okay. So we're going to keep AJ on the screen. But now let's work our way back. That's my, okay, BYU, they run and gun. I like to hear that. They get out in that secondary break and move and groove. So good. Tonight's a good style, good way to play. Put people in space. Go ahead and you're running on makes and misses. You got your shooters are sprinting down to the corners. Going to spread them out. Like Indy runs that secondary break. And they put that pressure on now. Indiana again, and we're going to get all the way back to them. But in running the secondary break against a team with lockdown defenders, young, hungry lockdown defenders, the Dorts, Kassan Wallace's, the Jalen Williams, right? Indy cannot turn the ball over. We can't have 20 turnovers. We can't have 10 turnovers. And for Indy to think that they're going to win game 7, they got to take care of the ball with their up-tempo offense. You can't always make that advance pass. Sometimes you got to hold on and just advance the ball yourself, okay? Because they got, them DBs, them corners and DBs and safeties are just, they're waiting, right? They know you're going to pass. Okay, you ain't, third and long, you're passing. So they're anticipating as Indy is trying to get out, and they're just turning them over at too high of a clip for Indiana to be successful. Okay, so for John Jones, it's it kind of reminds me a little bit of, I said the late great George Foreman, who was in his prime and was dominant. George was never the same after the Rumble in the Jungle. And then he came back after he had his catharsis in his life. So that's how I saw a little bit John Jones. He was the champ, and then it just got too much for him. And then he took a step back, right? Got his house in order. And you say to yourself, like, this sport, this community was an important part of my life and who I am. And the structure was very helpful and important for me. I think I want to get back involved. And he got back involved, and he come back and he just dominant, not dominant, but winning. But as Chris said, 37 is 37. So how long, right? But where is this really going? Particularly with our cognizance of injuries and specifically brain injuries. So that's my read. I gotta get a little bit more informed on John Jones. But if it's just age related and him saying, something, I'm gonna walk off. I'm gonna gallop off into the sunset rather than going out, because of injuries or ineptitude. That makes sense to me. I'm glad to, that's how you want to, conclude. Um, that's how you want to step away. Most certainly. I still got a little, right? It's good, but then it kind of slows up a bit. So just try to minimize, I'll come back and I'll put all these tabs back. I'm the type of individual, everybody's different, but I need, I got a lot of tabs open. I don't want, have to, you know, I keep a lot of tabs open and then I'll just make sure I get good battery life, so on and forth. Okay, so let's work our way back all the way to the NBA Finals. We didn't talked about a lot, but let's work our way back. Shout out to AJ. Shout out to his situation. That's another thing that I kind of rubbed up against today. Got a chance, I said, I refereed a local tournament, cash tournament for a good cause. And when they put that money up there, you get some hoopers. And so that's why this tournament is again, the number one thing is it's for a good cause, but this tournament, they bring out the D1 guys. They bring out the D1 guys. And so refereeing, I can tell you without any shadow of a doubt that the less talented an individual or a team is, generally speaking, your B and your C team individuals, learning, growing, the more sportsmanship. The less the talent, generally speaking, the more sportsmanship. Which means, of course, the greater the talent, the less of sportsmanship. And so that was the which you have to that's the balancing act. When you're refereeing, as I was today with guys that played big time college basketball, and then you know just Division II players and just really good men's league players. It's just everybody's really good and really animated, spirited. They want the calls. You're not getting every call, and you never. So that's the tough part. Is you have to, it's a men's league, and it's a big time tournament. So one of the things that one of my mentors who was a high level player and was a really good ref, one of the things, and so one of the things, appreciate that, Chris. One of the things one of my mentors said, who I have a lot of respect for, and when he says something, and he's kind of a man of few words, but so that's one reason why you listen. Another reason is because not only did he do big time games as a ref, but he played big time basketball, tried out in the N.B.A. So these referees that you meet, people think, which is, they say, wild things because you're just not in your rational mind. You're just so worked up. You give us no call, and it's, yeah, I'm here for the love of the game. Why would I throw a game when I'm here for the love of the game? Obviously everybody needs to make a couple extra dollars here and there. It's not really, but the men's league, a lot of people won't do men's leagues just because they don't, order what they call it, Argina. Argina, is that the Italian? I watch the, you give me Argina. You stress as talented and gifted as many alley oops and dunks and finger rolls and block shots And there's so many different layers and dimensions to these possessions. Like it's amazing to see the symmetry. All like when you go to a Drew League or a Cape, it's just to see the real pros do what they do. You're kind of just it's different. So that's all wonderful. But the attitudes, the egos, you know, the lack of accountability at times, that'll make your hair turn gray. But again, you kind of balance it out. It's rare that you get a chance to see this talent. So that's the one part of it. Secondly, the tournament, charitable cause, that's the other part of it. And you put all that together and you say, okay, I can deal with the challenges, but this is something that I want. It's something that I want to be a part of. But what's the connection? And we're going to get back to the game most certainly. What's the connection? It's that now, like a reality of it is like, wow, like this player, played at this ACC school, or wow, this player played at this Big East school, and it's like, okay, so I'm seeing, so this is right. They have that skills, they're moving like that's the level they play at. That's the first thing. Second thing is with this NIL, like wow, like this young man took home 6 figures minimum to bring their talents to. So it's not just a talent, this individual. Again, back to AJ, who's what 19, maybe like because he's about 19 years old or whatever. Give a 19-year-old $7 million while they're in college, which is even obviously the pros get played, but that's more of a precarious situation if you ask me, because they're not around other adults. Like at least that rookie that you gave that big or millions and millions of dollars, you got vets on the team to kind of be like, hey, young fella, like, look, I know, because I was there. I went through exactly what so I know, you're just thinking Viva Las Vegas. It's even I'm not young anymore, but just still the thought. If I was, when I was young, if you would just give me all kinds of money and I get to do what I love to do, and we're gonna call that work, what? I do what I would do for free out on the playground, hours on end till the street light comes on. But you're gonna give me millions of dollars to do this? And people, I have met Ed Cooley, Chris. Good question. Ed Cooley's the man. Ed Cooley is the man. And we're gonna make the connection back to because one of the players that was out there today hooping, I ain't gonna say no names, but played at Providence, but played for Kim English, who was Ed Cooley's assistant. I got a chance to meet Ed Cooley when I was I've been reffing 15 years, so maybe years like 4, 5, 6, 7, like years 5 to 10 when I was chasing it in officiating. And I tell you, getting out there today and moving around and reffing kind of brought back that love for me to say. And I'll break down. I'll get to your point about Ed Cooley, but what you have to do, because it's two things that I'm going to say. Frankly, first of all, today humbled me because I go into these games. Yeah. I'm going to get to Ed Cooley. I go into these games honestly with a little bit too much chutzpah. I've always had chutzpah in terms of officiating because I'm a basketball nerd. So being an official is really like I love playing basketball. I love playing, but I ain't no D1 player. But I'll play in these men's league tournaments. I will play, and you can score 50. But I'm gonna be Rudy good for all those 50. I don't care. I'm just happy to be out there. So I have, again, just because I'm out here in the hinterlands, we don't have a ton of we don't get these cash tournaments coming to us. As if you was in like New Beige, we call it like New Bedford. Obviously, you're in Boston, right? The cash tournaments are going to bring out D1 players, going to bring out some pros, to get that, it's pride thing. And who couldn't use a couple of extra $100,000, extra 100 or 1,000. It's not 100,000, but you see what I'm saying. But to the point about Ed Cooley, so what you have to do as an official to move, you have to go to what they call quote unquote camps. And these camps are not cheap. These camps you're paying hundreds of dollars, 3, 4, 5, $100 for the camp. Okay, It's what we would call, sometimes in officiating, we call it legalized extortion. So if you want to move up the ladder to get to college, get to D3, then from D3, can you get to D2? Then from D2, can you get to D1? You have to go to these camps where the assigners evaluate you and you're paying the money. And a lot of times these camps are in conjunction with a tournament. So the tournament, instead of the tournament paying like whatever it is, it's usually $30 a game. There's two, so it's $60 a court per hour. So you multiply that by how many? So $60 per court per hour. How many courts? How many hours? Whatever it comes out to, 10,000, 15, 20,000. It can be big tournaments. You can talk about 20K, right? So this assigner, this individual will say, listen, you don't have to just give me the money that you would give to the assigner, and I'll find these officials for you, that are going to, that will do the tournament. So they get that money. And then, I forgot that I had, doing some the VHSs, and I still have a VHS. Right here in the background. I'm proud to have a VHS. Actually, it's for the work that I do to digitize old tapes, which I just do. It's what I do for a local Hall of Fame that I'm a part of. Just so people can see the glory years. So it's pretty cool. But you got the VCR in the background. Let's get back to Ed Cooley. So I broke down the camps, and fortunately for me, and it's a couple things. First of all, I look back. I love this podcast, as I've told you. I love to do it. It suits me. It's a passion project, so on and forth. And I'm passionate about reffing. I'm not chasing it like I once was, because if you do break through and get a Division 1, which is the big time, Division 1 refs, like, they're making bank. Okay, just a little insight. You make $3,000 a game at the Division 1 level, and then it goes up from there. That's just, you do Division 1, 3,000 per game, and then you move up. You start talking about Power 5, and like you're making, and the best refs in the country are going to work, because again, they're getting $3,000 a game, and the leagues want them. They say, we want this guy in our league. We want him to do as many games as possible. The other league says the same thing. So every league, once you break through and you're a NCAA tournament ref, you're a Final Four ref, the leagues are looking for you. You can ref as many games for our league as you want. And every league feels that way. So these guys do 40, 50, 60, 70, like in a season. They're in, because you're getting 3,000 plus, and they like to do it. So you're making tons of money, and then, then you can come back and you can do the camp thing, because you're a good ref and people want your opinion. So that's how it works. So, okay, so your point about Ed Cooley. Mike Stevens is his name. He's retired now. He does a signing, but he was widely considered the best college referee in the country. The Villanova, North Carolina game, right? The buzzer beater, he was the ref on that game. There was like a 10-year stretch where he refereed the national championship game every other year or every year. He was the ref, the boss in the national championship game. He did at least 5, if not more. So widely considered the best referee in the country. And he's out of Providence, Massachusetts. He's a good guy. He's a good, just to meet and talk to him. He's was a really cool guy. He ended up, just getting into refereeing and being in Providence, so he's close to the Big East, and he just got an opportunity. And he did what we call a referee, and he leapfrogged a lot of guys. He was just that chosen one, so to speak, that golden child. And he got an opportunity, and the people that gave him an opportunity were proven right, because he ended up being widely considered the best referee in the country. Now, in officiating, just like anything else, there's going to be hard feelings. Like when somebody comes up and they're supposed to, but then they leapfrog, and then they, they were really talented. So when they get the opportunity and then they leapfrog again, they deserve the opportunity. Um, so yeah, Ed Hightower, I got that doesn't ring a bell. Ed Pickney rings a bell. Ed Hightower, I remember him, Chris, but not as much. But back to your Ed Cooley point. So the camp that Mike ran was at Providence College. He's from Providence. He's at Providence College, and it was Ed Cooley's camp that he ran. And Ed Cooley, it was his camp was just a high school basketball camp. Like teams went together. It was a team camp, and teams from all here, there, and like the coaches work with the kids, get a chance to go to Providence, get a chance to in the dorms, and so um, it wasn't like a grassroots elite tournament. It was the Providence tournament for mostly just high school kids that were going to go on and play Division 3. But when I tell you that Ed Cooley was generous with his time and down to earth, and hung out with us as referees, and we went to like the local spots in Providence, um, and he was there, like just really just a cool guy, as well as being a top flight coach. There's it's tough that he left Providence, the Providence guy, to go to Georgetown. Um, there was hard feelings. Kim English came in first year, did a really good job. Last year was a little bit more of a struggle. So it would have been great if he stayed, right? Because Providence, whether you know or not, I don't mind stating it. We'll get AJ off the screen now. Providence is the birthplace of the Big East. Go ahead and check out ESPN 30 for 30 Requiem for the Big East. Learn about Dave Gavitt. The Big East Conference. Not a lot of people know Villanova now. Go back. I'm dating myself, but I don't care. Go back to the awesome '80s of Pearl Washington and Chris Mullin. Okay, Dana Barros, others, Patrick Ewing. Okay, the Big East was born. It was the brainchild of Dave Gavitt, who was the basketball coach and AD. Ed Hightower. Okay, gotta check him out. Um, I'll check out Ed Hightower. We didn't cross paths, but I will check him out. So Ed Cooley, being a Providence guy, bringing prosperity, and Providence has had good teams throughout the years, right? Rick Pitino was the coach there. Billy Donovan played there, coached there. Um, we're down for a few years. Ed Cooley came back and kind of reinvigorated it. But um, yeah, you know, I'm happy for Ed. I think, frankly, he took his talents to Georgetown. Just, obviously you have the Thompson legacy, the John Thompson legacy is part of it. But to be able to recruit the DMV, Ed Cooley did a tremendous job of keeping Providence kids and recruiting New England. But let's be honest, like New England and New England's on a hot streak. So at the same time, Cooper Flag's from Maine. AD DeBansi says from Brockton. Okay, right? Chris Dunn's an Ed Cooley guy, finding his niche in the number 3 overall pick. But I think Ed Cooley went to Georgetown, so to get the Carmelo Anthonys, to get the Rudy Gays, to get the Kevin Durant's. It's just a different animal when you're talking about those Maryland, Virginia. Um, you go up Jersey. Just to be able to recruit a different talent pool is why I think he took that job, and I can't really blame him. Whereas you're trying to pull kids from the city to get them to come to Providence. You're trying to, you got the Boston kids, and you're trying to keep them local. But you're not getting, by and large, even though, we are like New England is on a hot streak, because we can go back to the late great Terrence Clark, prior to Boston. So, but by and large, overall, it's not what I don't think that's debatable. So I didn't, it's unfortunate. It's a loss. But Kim English comes in to kind of take the baton, and I wish Ed Ed the best, good guy. In terms of what he's doing. Okay, so again, the point that I've made and I'm making and I'm continuing to make, and we're going to get all the way back to the Thunder, is that you just these young lions, you're refereeing the game, and but it's like they've earned with NIL, and this is just everyone like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and so you hope that they're getting good advice and they're investing that money and they're playing the long game because that we're talking about some nitroglycerin. If you just give a 19-year-old on a college campus $3 million, there's just not no right. That's one of the things where you know what I mean. You talk to the veteran players or not what I mean veterans. LeVar Arlington on Up on Game does a really good job. We're talking about this. The stars of yesteryear, before this NIL revolution. Shout out to Ed O'Bannon, who's finally getting his flowers and been kind of spearheading this for 30 years. But they were the guy, like Jason Kidd at California. Like there was some money that they were getting. I'm not going to say that their boosters were going to give that. These guys are not sisters of the poor, but for the most part, they're just college kids. You get a nice car and you get some privileges, and go ahead and check out the Pony Excess. Talking about SMU and Marcus, uh, Dickerson. These guys, they're getting money and, having, but it's not millions, or hundreds of thousands just as a rule for everybody. So, you know, they need support. They need good people around them. And hopefully that's the case. They got people that are gonna, have their best interests in mind. Talk about UNLV and Tarkanian, Larry Johnson, Stacey Augman, Greg Anthony. They should have beat Duke that year. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I mean, it's right. Fab Five. They need those banners back up. Um, right. You got to be careful what you wish for because you might get it, and you just see it so much. I'm guilty of it. I look back, in terms of, you see the young, talented, these prodigies, and you're just taken aback and wow, wow, wow. A 17-year-old is a 17-year-old. An 18-year-old is an 18-year-old. Period. With $5 million or with $5, they're. You think about how the challenges of coming of age. That's what they're going through. And back to Ed Cooley, he, can get through. He's a right. He has that gift to get through to people in those and that's what like a John Thompson. Like you still need so Patrick Ewing went there. That's what we talked about. The Heart of Pearl. Looking at Scott Pollard telling his story. Why he chose to go to Kansas and play for Roy Williams because he needed structure and he needed guidance. And that's the dark side of this NIL everything revolution is those things aren't in place. It's just a casino royale, highest bidder, come here, play for our school, give us some hype, and take your money. And so you have the money, so you're good now. And then we can so it's a contract. We gave you the money, you perform on the court. And that's really all that we're concerned about. Well, talk about good money after bad, that ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. You're not, if first of all, it's not working. Never mind who has the upper hand, who doesn't have the upper hand. How do you push kids? How do you get them to when their market value is whatever it is. We can get into all of that, but they need to be pushed. They need to be held accountable. And if they leave, they leave. And that's what a lot of people are bemoaning right now. And so that's what hopefully shout out to Charlie Baker, who was a good governor. Speaking of working across the aisle, Charlie Baker, Republican, thought he did a great job here in Massachusetts as governor through the pandemic and others. Thought he would have been a good candidate for the Republican Party, but we'll just leave it at that. And he's, the running the NCAA, and this is a huge breakthrough. College is saying, all right, listen, we're gonna We're going to pay players. We're going to pay players. We're going to devise a system, and we're going to put some safeguards into that system so it's not just this buck wildness. Okay, we got to reel in the damn transfer portal. Right? You're going to get this contract, 2-year contract, 2 years. You can leave if you want. You're sitting out a year. After the 2 years, you want to leave, you're behind sits out. Okay, I didn't understand it at the time. I was just all for it, but I didn't see then. It's we should have just took the NIL and just kept the transfer portal the same. But the two things together, no good. No good. Okay, and so, happy for the young folks, but get yourself into a situation where you're rubbing elbows with the Ed Coolies of the world who can help you to have success, but manage that success so you have success for the long term, right? Overall majority of these phenoms, they're not going to the NBA. Okay, they're not. Okay, so where do they fit in? Are you gonna coach? Are you gonna train? Are you gonna have like a grassroots program? What's the long view, for you? Because it's just there's only 300 some odd, and now the NBA is a global entity. So you're not just you're competing for the next Giannis that's over in Greece. You're competing against the next Luka that's over in Slovenia. The next Yao Ming that's in China. You're competing against the globe for one of those 300, low 400. So that's what the universities, the coaches, okay? How can you step out of the limelight and return to working class life seamlessly rather than being thunderstruck? Let's go all the way back, make the connecting point to John Jones, and then over to the NBA Finals. Then we'll do some NBA draft stuff. Other people have some things. Let me know, right? It's like John Jones. You reach that high point. You had your Sisyphus experience. You tumbled down to the bottom. You built yourself back up, and you got out there and restored and regained a championship level in MMA. And maybe it's the point you say, okay, now I can ride off into the sunset with dignity on my own terms, and shift gears into that next iteration, whatever he's doing, broadcaster, trainer, philanthropist, so that you don't want folks to be in that 60% of NBA players who are broke, or that 70+% of NFL players who are broke. And this is something Gil's Arena does a good job. We don't player hate, we congratulate, of just telling the story. These, right? The most confident athlete, the millions of dollars, eventually, and this is even the guys that make it to the NBA. Okay, because what's the average career? 5-7 years, and and of course the lifestyle. Go ahead and check out Billy Corbin, 30 for 30 broke. The competition, the machismo. This guy's spending thousands of dollars on a dinner. Think you're going to be young forever? I can spend thousands of dollars on it. I can, because I'm money. It's going to go on in perpetuity. It's going to keep going on, and of course it doesn't. Then, particularly if you're coming from underprivileged situations, people see you as that ticket out of poverty. You feel obliged to help. A lot of good money after bad there. Not understanding economics. Me, I'm the first, because I would do the same thing. But all those little, loans, that's just good money after bad. A lot of times. And the other people and your family and friends need to understand it and not ask those guys as much. Or say, it's an investment, meaning contract signed, you're going to pay me back. That, you're my family, you're going to make me. No. Because that's how actual business works and is sustainable. You have a business plan. I invest at this, at this rate. You work, you pay me back. I get my little cut off the top with the interest. You have your business. Once that it's done, the loan is paid. Now you're on your feet to make it. That's how it works. Charles Barkley talks about this, does a good job talking about, that's something, I learned how to say no. No. And I don't feel bad about it. And you should feel bad for infringing upon me, frankly, if you're really my family or really my friend. if you really, right? What do they say? More money, more problems. I think of it. This is stuff that is fascinating to me. Like if I did win Powerball or win, like who would I tell? Who wouldn't I tell? All that stuff. But then, like I would want to help people, certainly. But I tell you right now, just watching Billy start, I'm gonna make it very clear. Like, and this is hypothetical. Like you're signing a contract. You're gonna bring me a business plan. I'm not just getting no. James Harden talks about. I'm just giving a lot of names, but it is what it is. James Harden talks about this, and talking about just again people looking and one of the things James Harden says is he's looking at the owner, the owner of these teams. He's talking to Daddy Warbucks to get his advice, Steve Ballmer and those guys, and he's like, Steve Ballmer's not doing that. Mark Zuckerberg ain't doing that. Oprah ain't doing that. So why do you expect me to do it? Yeah, I'm rich, as Chris Rock said. I ain't wealthy. I'm rich. Right? Oprah is rich. Bill Gates is wealthy. Like there's further levels to this thing. Everybody looking at me like I'm him, like I'm Elon or Bill or Mark or Jeff. I'm just rich. I ain't that other. Fat Joe, I ain't that other. I ain't got Rockefeller money. I ain't got Rockefeller money. And by the way, speaking of which, on this point, people jump in at any time. We have an hour and 7 minutes. SandCity, no end in sight. We into the summer right now. SandCity is good. It's going down, folks. It's going down. If I can't be a part of the greatest, I got to be the greatest myself. It's going down tonight, folks. It is what it is. It is what it is. But on that line of thinking, I saw a good clip. About John Rockefeller and how he saw as he was, never mind the fact that he got sick midlife, almost died, and then he ended up living on to be like 98 or whatever. But that's when he became more philanthropic, more charity based, and more trying to give away. And I mean, but John Rockefeller, he looked around and he said, "This ain't gonna last. This ain't gonna last." He as much like it's not. If I just give it to them as is, they're going to burn through it. And you can go ahead and it's crazy. Old fortunes that people just burnt through. And they were, a captain of industry at the turn of the century, and the family in a century or whatever burned through that money. And they don't have, they're not billionaires. They're not part of the billionaire class, which they should be. If you have that far of a lead to start with. But Rockefeller saw that and he was like, no, it's not going to happen with my fortune. And so he put, the Rockefeller, it's interesting when I saw that, how the Rockefeller money is disseminated to the family, whereas it always has to, the way that he structured it, it replenishes itself. I'm not just giving you access. I'm not giving you keys to the kingdom. I'm not doing that shit. SandCity Sports, family friendly. I'm not doing it. And the Rockefeller, it's what it is. It's been maintained over the decades and century plus. Others have not. They ain't been maintained. So again, all the way back to I don't know who I started with, but let's just say the N.B.A. play, you know what I mean, or the college players who are smaller numbers, but the N.B.A. players larger numbers. No, that's a surefire way, and maybe some relationships are going to become more distant. Tyler Perry talks about this. We'll get that clip for you when we go to Slice of Life. Talking about, hey, I love my family from a distance. I love them from a distance. I'm gonna help, I'm gonna support, but you coming over here to Tyler Perry Studios thinking that I'm gonna co-sign your movie because you're my cousin and I gotta put you on and throw $10 million into your concept to do it. You better think again, my friend. you better think again. You want to do a movie? You better go talk to Antoine Fuqua. Shout out to Training Day. Shout out to Brooklyn's Finest. We need to put Brooklyn. I've been talking to you for a minute now. We got to put some stuff on the screen. I got to put some stuff on the screen. And I got to go through my social, see everybody out there is doing. A couple people on Facebook, much love and appreciation on the Facebook. Oh, my family. My family tuned in. That means a lot to me on the IG. My family checked out, joined. I appreciate that. Family and dear friends, like close friends, like family, people I grew up with. I got a couple views on Twitter, and folks on the YouTube are interacting. Chris, appreciate you very much. Keep steering the conversation and the dialogue. We got to get Brooklyn's finest up there for you on the screen because again, you've seen Training Day. All right, this is your Training Day, Detective Hoyt. Indie Gold. Training Day is Indie Gold. Right? I put Training Day. Training Day is up there with the usual suspects. And I tell you right now, I'm telling you, if you like Training Day and you haven't seen Brooklyn's finest, you're doing yourself just, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say to you. Go ahead and get right. If Training Day was your jam, Detective Hoyt and Alonzo Harris, and you have not seen Brooklyn's finest, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And what's the point here? The point is Antoine Fuqua is the connecting, talented, community-minded, young, well, I don't know how, African-American director. He just has that golden touch. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. He got the touch. Remind me of a young Spike. I said what I said. Remind me of Spike Lee with Clockers, which was a tremendous book, by the way. If you see, go ahead and see Clockers, a party like Do the Right Thing, Crooklyn Clockers. One of the early book was written by a gentleman named Richard Price, who's a tremendous author. Wrote Freedom Land, which was a movie with Samuel L. Jackson. Richard Price came on board just being a brilliant mind in terms of Americana, right? And the city being the microcosm for the American experience, the macrocosm, right? We understand and learn in that. So the city is the kind of where we see the American experience and these things, or as David Simon would say, the American experiment, how they work, collective government, shared responsibility, so on and forth. But I bring this up because Richard Price, who again, people, you know what I mean. You've seen Clockers. That Clockers is, I don't even know what it is. It's just very strong. So he came on board as a writer for The Wire after season 3 because it's only supposed to be 3 seasons of The Wire because HBO. By the way, people out there, appreciate you here, SandCity Sports. We're doing what we're doing. My passion project. I know that. Whoa. My man Chris here. This man's a brother from another because he done brought up Bamboozled. Chris is a brother from another mother. This is crazy right now. He brought up Bamboozled. Talking about Damon Wayans. I got to get Bamboozled on the screen. Crooklyn people know. People don't know Bamboozled. Oh, my goodness. Mos Def is in that film. Jada Pinkett. Oh, Michael Rappaport. Oh, we got to get it for you on the screen. This man, Chris, here is adding surplus value to SandCity Sports. He done mentioned Bamboozled. He mentioned Bamboozled. What? This is one of Spike. This is certainly one of Spike Lee's indie. I think they made the film on like beta, right? Spike Lee talks about it. Let's get Bamboozled for the people on the screen. All right, because I told you about Antoine Fuqua. Check out Brooklyn's finest. Okay, just take my word for it. If training, check it out. Just check it out. But what? Bamboozled? This film, this satire that was made on the cheap. Spike Lee talks about it, and Do the Right Thing. Nike gave him $0, right? All of the product placement that he had in Do the Right Thing, and you look back and it's kind of one of these things. It's amazing. I'm bouncing around, but it is what it is. I got to go because my man Chris, he done brought some realness out. So I got to go. Like I got to go off now. I have to do it. based on the realness that has come up in the chat. So first of all, Bamboozled is tremendous. It's an indie film, but the concept and what he was saying is as true then as it was now in terms of the process, like something that Ken Burns talks about, the process of discovery and making a film. And what Bamboozle brings out is, you know, the self. And go ahead and check it out. But it's a satire looking at, you know, why. What am I trying to say here? Tyler Perry is so important in the creative space, in the film community. Never mind the success that he's had, and because he, and this idea that he got from Oprah, that is the bottom line. I talked about it. It's not the man that's keeping you down. It's not society. If you want to do it, you have to do it. My man Matt Damon wrote Good Will Hunting. My man Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky. You have to do it. And by the way, we noticed Sylvester Stallone was flat broke, and the studio said, "We'll give you $300,000 for the script, okay? And we're gonna do it our way." He said, "Go kick rocks." He said, "Go kick rocks. I'll stay flat broke." He had to sell his dog and then buy his dog back because I have the vision. I'm starring in this film. It's my passion project. I wrote it. I'm starring in this film. And I'll stay poor, broke until it comes to fruition. By the way, The Bronx Tale, Chaz Palminteri, classic. You understand? Same thing. He had it. It was a Broadway play. They said, "We'll give you this money." He was broke. "We'll give you $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. And as soon as they keep going, you have something at that point. I know I have this gold, okay? But we're doing it my way. You're going to get your money. We're doing it my way. Same thing is true on another scale of Mark Zuckerberg. And this is from the Social Network. They wanted him to sell. No. And now Zuckerberg is a multi-trillionaire, whatever. And, and right. Never mind that you wouldn't have been happy not having the thing. That's another part of it. I think the guy that did Minecraft talks about this, and he, because he had a bunch of money, but he didn't have any purpose beyond the money. But with Bamboozled, and such a great point, the project itself just looks at, it's a lot like American Fiction. Jeffrey Wright, which if you haven't seen American Fiction, check it out. It's a similar concept. American Fiction is so well done. Jeffrey Wright is in Spike Lee's new joint that's coming out, The Highest and the Lowest, which is a tremendous cast. But it just looks at the battles and the wars that take place within the creative space and the creative economy to get your vision, not my vision with all of the Q rating and the yada 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 and the testing here, and no. Let me do my freaking art. It's going to work. Let me do my art. It's going to work. You're going to make your money, but I'm saying what I need to say. And what am I getting at is specific to the African American experience or the minority experience. Okay? In that, let me tell, I am the experience. I know. So let me share the experience in a way that's authentic, where you're going to make your money because it's going to be art. But it's authentic to me, not your interpretation of me. It's authentic to me. So Bamboozled, and the studios and the money people are like, no, go, And so Spike Lee, I'm gonna make it make it anyway on the cheap, and it's indie gold. It's indie gold. But just that. And so when you go and you look at, and we'll get this for you on the screener, like when Denzel Washington is at Cannes and he has this very heated conversation with somebody, which is like, man, that's out of character for Denzel. And he goes over to somebody and get really, they exchange words, and this is on the red carpet. Everybody's happy. Everybody's smiling. It's like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of added. It's like, what, like this is like, you know what I mean? But with that said, to me, and we'll get it for you on the screen, when Denzel walked over, that speaks to just these things behind the scenes where it's just chaos and battles, right? And we're not going to give you that role. No, we're going to do it the way we see. Even though you're the best person for the role, we're not giving you the role because we want it to be for this audience and for them to get it, and we think that they'll get it this way, and so we're going to do it this way, even though that actor or that director would have produced a better product, which would have had a longer lifespan because it's higher quality. I go all the way back to The Godfather and The Godfather 2, and it's like, okay, right, like, Francis, you got the touch, make your movie. Now that can go crazy, like you talk about Apocalypse Now, where people just, film was over, but you can't always do that. But you got to keep the artists in line, in check to a certain extent. Martin Scorsese talks about this. Studios gave, once he did Raging Bull and Main Streets, it's like, okay, this guy's got the golden touch. We're gonna let him cook. But then, he kept doing all these projects over time, over budget, and he finally said, okay, I got to bring this in. This film's got to be, this film has to be on time and on budget. That's Lorraine Bracco, who won an Academy Award in Goodfellas. That was her first. She was a model. That was her first big time film. Kind of launched, and she wasn't. She just happened to be Harvey Keitel's girlfriend. And then of course Lorraine Bracco on The Sopranos. But she went in to meet Martin and, like, thought she was going to get this role, and he was like, no, because I can't fit you in here because I got to do it on time. But I'll keep you in mind for this other project I have called Goodfellas. And she thought, oh, he's a jerk, I don't like him, and it seemed to work out fine. But the point going all the way back to Bamboozled is the studio said to Martin Scorsese, artist, make your picture. We trust you. Do what you do. They ain't say that to Spike Lee with Bamboozled. They ain't say that to Spike Lee with Do the Right Thing. And a couple other projects, to say the least. That's, again, why Tyler Perry, his studio, again, I keep, to greenlight some of these voices that wouldn't. And that's how, right? You can see how people would be offended and hurt and yada, 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 and how it would fray relationships. But at the same time, beyond the frayed relationships, for me, you got to, you can't allow that to stop you from doing your art or create what they would call a root of bitterness in you that compromises your art because you're so mad that somebody else doesn't have your vision. They're not going to have your vision because they're them. And there are the Brad Pitts of the world that out there. Brad Pitt greenlighted 12 Years a Slave and Steve McQueen. Brad Pitt got behind that and said, oh, bro, we don't know. And we're doing this. Just like Robert De Niro did the same thing with Chaz Palminteri in The Bronx Tale. We're doing this. Well, we're doing it. Okay, Rob. Okay, Bob. All that, but then when it's somebody that walks in those circles, that has the gravitas, and we're doing it. Then all of a sudden, oh yeah, good idea. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's gonna be wonderful. You wouldn't believe it when I said it's gonna. Oh, I don't know. Oh yeah, you're onto something here, buddy. I can see it. You see this a lot in education or parenting. Whatever the case may be. I guess it's the same in Hollywood. You tell a student something 5 times. Yeah, okay, I got to tap out now. I got somebody else work with the Little Thundercat. Somebody else, I got you. That's the part of getting, in education. You got to know, okay, it's Thundercat giving me a run for my money. I got to tap out. Bring in another perspective. They come in and say the same thing, the same exact thing. Oh yeah, great. That's a good idea. I think you just got to, okay, I just walk away. I was the same way. Okay, so Chris and we had to go there. But just talking about, what it takes to get your vision off the ground and not letting others stop you from doing such and said. And there is, because there's no, like, if you think about it, Bamboozled, it's a really good film and a good concept. And, if it had more investment, it would just have a broader reach and impact. And the connecting point that I was making, and this is that the Wire was not even nominated for an Emmy. Go ahead and check out all the pieces matter. No, excuse me. Way down in the hole. All the pieces matter is the book about the Wire. Way down in the hole is a tremendous podcast about the Wire. We don't play or hate around here. Congratulate with Jamel Hill and Van Latham. It's off the charts. And then it's just if you like the Wire, these are a lot of things that I got into. I was fortunate to get into during the pandemic. Way down in the hole, outstanding podcast about the Wire, and then Talking Sopranos is a tremendous podcast with Michael Imperioli and Steve Sharippa about the Sopranos. Just awesome. And just delving into just getting into the if you really like it and how it came to be and what it was like on the set and just how this masterpiece came along. But within that, first of all, it's crazy because it was Sopranos and The Wire back to back, and The Sopranos was the viewership was just off the charts. The Wire, Sopranos winning awards, winning Emmys. The Wire, and again, this is arguably 1 and 2 of all time, and they were back to back. And just at the time, The Sopranos was a runaway hit, but it took time for people to understand. I feel that I got him 1 and 2. I go with The Wire because The Wire again is giving you the macrocosm. It's telling the story, the American experience through the city of Baltimore, just in different each season from a different look, right? If you're a Wire person. Season 1, West Baltimore. Season 2, the Port. Season 3, City Hall. Season 4, the schools. Season 5, the papers. Right? So David Simon is telling you the story from all of these different vantage points, some of which we weren't familiar with. That's why I thought it was just groundbreaking in terms of he told a very similar story, the urban, gritty story, but he gave you some angles that you just I was not aware of. I think many people were not aware of. He just added context and value. The Sopranos does that same thing, but it doesn't do it through the context of a city. It does it through just one family. So The Sopranos is giving you all of these macrocosm themes, but vis-a-vis a family, a single nuclear unit. And they're up there, both of them. I have The Wire 1 and The Sopranos 2, or in Breaking Bad a close 3. Game of Thrones is in the conversation. That's me. Okay, but where I'm going with this is, not only was it blacked out, and the ratings were so. Emmys didn't even nominate Hoop Dreams as a doc. Didn't even nominate. Excuse me, Emmys. The Oscars didn't even nominate Hoop Dreams. Wasn't even nominated. Arguably the greatest documentary of all time. Was not even nominated. So that just I always laugh at that, and it just what I mean. Keep going. Just keep going. These venerated, they have their blind spots, plenty. And the other point that I want to make, funny, we got the volume on one of my great programs. I see my man, The Joy of Painting, with Bob Ross. Bob Ross is the man, always will be the man. Shout out to Bob Ross. The other thing that I have to note is that Treme, which was David Simon's next project after The Wire, he did get investment. You can see it the way. So the cinematography, it's just shot. You can tell the studio gave him more money to do that project. Whereas up into The Wire, he didn't, studio supported it, but a lot of the way that it's shot, you can see it was kind of some guerrilla tactics and whatnot. So yeah, supposed to be 3 seasons, as I said, and many people know. Richard Price came on for season 4. That's something I don't mind mentioning again and again and again. So season 4 is the most critically acclaimed season, the schools. I favor season 2, the ports, just because you can go either way. The ports gave a perspective that I was not, just, really showed you some, angles that were really, for me, right? Because you talk about the Black Dragon, I think is what they call it, a stretch of I-95 from in New Jersey, where the most seizures of narcotics are anywhere. But it's everybody, all the enforcement for narcotics is on I-95. I remember talking to somebody that lived in the DMV, but it's everybody knows, the drugs are not coming They don't start on I-95. The drugs are coming into the city from the ports. Everybody knows this. But all the enforcement's on the street. So that's what David Simon was like. Have you considered? We don't like to tell it. We don't like to focus on that side of it. But again, back to this idea of investment. So after The Wire, and once it became, and the studio was like, oh, this guy knows his business. He got more. Studio got behind Treme, and I didn't get into the Deuce as much about New York City in the 70s and 80s. I didn't get in, like, the Deuce was good, but it didn't really, but kind of well-funded projects. I mean, people are watching. What are we, an hour and 30 in? No end in sight. SandCity Sports. Appreciate those that's checking in. All right, we are gonna now work our way all the way back to the N.B.A. Finals. We took a circuitous route. It is what it is. We went all the way around, but now we're gonna kind of work our way back to this Game 7, and how it's gonna shake out. Like we started, you know what I mean? You're in rarefied air now, so right, there's gonna be unexpected things, and so. But that aside, how is this game going to shake out for me? Okay, and again, I have Indy in 7. Chris, still here. Appreciate you, man. Let me know. We going back to the Genesis, talking about the NBA Finals. And tomorrow's Game 7. We're saying City's we're going to be live for the finals. So lock in. We'll be here. So it's it's series of 7. It's a toss up. But that first punch, that first half is where I'm looking. Indy, like because all right, this could just be a photo finish, right? Whereas both teams come out, you know what I mean? There's like nothing to lose, come out, and it stays within that 5 to 7, 9 to 6. It just stays within the margin, and we just go all the way down to the wire, and it's just about who executes in the fourth quarter. That's one. These just two good teams. And they're just running. Like Indy's gonna go, and that's by the way how it coming from a long and glorious day of refereeing today. Whereas like basketball, it's a game of runs. That's what I learned. That team, really good team gets up. You feel like, oh, they got the game in hand. Then they have a couple empty possessions. Chris hasn't watched the finals. It's been like again, the number. Folks thought that O.K.C was just going to boat race Indy. So that's the first thing that I always have to mention relative to like the talk going into this finals was that it was a foregone conclusion, which for me, never mind the fury about my New York Knicks. Yes, because you talk about Indiana, you just get me upset about my Knicks. But before Indy just won a series, I don't feel they should have won. Okay, Knicks win Game 1. It's a whole different ball of wax. If Fits and Butts were candy and nuts, we'd all have Merry Christmas. They didn't. They lost the series. Tibbs lost his gumption. There's all this nonsense going on behind the scenes with analytics, and so Tibbs was not coaching the way Tibbs needed to coach. The imbeciles with their load management foolishness. If Tibbs had trusted his instincts in Game 6, I keep saying it, and just shortened the rotation, we could have won Game 6 and forced a Game 7 to win that doggone series. But that's neither here nor there. Why is Indiana all of a sudden chips? They freaking laid hands on Cleveland. People act like, okay, Cleveland was nice. And they got them up out of there like nothing. And then they put the Knicks, my Knicks, people feel whatever way they want to feel, okay? But my New York Knicks took out a dynastic team in the Boston Celtics before Tatum got injured. And by the way, the Celtics, they need to come to their doggone senses. Any deals that go on draft day that include Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, or Jason Tatum, the dynasty is over. I've said it. I'm saying it again. Chris B.P. I put in this mix, but and I'm not, Chris, they all need to reach. If the Celtics break up this group, they're no longer a championship team. Period. End of story. Check these receipts. It's not happening. It's not happening. If the Celtics break up this group, it's not happening. Okay, and I was thinking about this, from the standpoint, Denver and their win, and this Denver is getting ready, but it's Jamal Murray, the Joker, Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon. That's their core four where they spent. Everybody else got to take less. That's just the way it has to be. So the Celtics core four, which I just named, okay, has to stay together for them to be a championship team. You're not going to replace a Derek White. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It is not working. I don't care what anybody says. We can come back to this. The Celtics run as contenders will conclude if any of that first, their Drew, Derek, and the Jays, the JB, they all need to be there. That's the nucleus. Period. Okay? And Denver, with a whole bunch of drama and chaos and everything else, with a less talented nucleus. I said what I said. Jamal Murray, Joker, Aaron Gordon. It's not even close. It's not even close. And you can have the best overall player if you want with Joker, but Tatum, Brown, Holiday, who is a Hall of Famer. People forget Drew Holiday is a Hall of Famer. Derek White is a fringe all-star, and they play together. Okay? What the team needs, okay, is, and they're not gonna, it's not gonna happen, but they need to beef up the bench to help Joe Mazzulla. That's what they need. They need the brain trust to be better. Joe Mazzulla is not the coach to be able to, he's not. He's just not. He's a good coach, but again, he won the championship with a fierce brain trust. Jeff Van Gundy, Charles Lee, Sam Cassell, Emile Jefferson, and Brad Stevens, right? There was just a collection of minds. You lost two of those very important members, and Jeff Van Gundy and Charles Lee, and you just didn't replace them. Huge problem. Brad Stevens wants to do in-house. Huge problem. He tried to do in-house the year before, when the Celtics lost in 2023 to Miami Heat, another finalist the Heat stole from the Celtics. They stole a finals from the Celtics in 2020. They stole another finals from the Celtics in 2023. There's no two ways about it. They didn't even have the second best player. And that was when the M.A. disaster happened. And he didn't, and I was saying it, bring in Frank Vogel. Bring in another mind to help Mazzulla. He needs help. Joe Mazzulla ain't no Tom Thibodeau. He ain't no Kenny Atkinson. He ain't been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years before coming into the big chair. He got his opportunity too early because of madness that was going on in the organization. And I had no problem with the Celtics suspending M.A. And I'm happy for M.A. in terms, but he shouldn't have been acting how he was acting. Period. End of story. And I feel some type of way about it because M.A. is a guy that had to pull himself up by his bootstraps. Never mind, and married, or I'm not getting into all that, the personal life. You don't treat people a certain type of a way when you have success. You don't do it. Right? We go all the way back to Ed Cooley, who Chris brought up. And what, you know what I mean? This is a guy that's successful. Okay? He's a successful person that treats people with respect. And is and has a long way to go, and that's how he approaches it. You know what I mean? So the stuff with the Celtics when Joe Mazzulla had, and the things that it should have been going on. Did he need to be fired? We can talk about that. But you shouldn't have been treating people like that. I know that much. I don't care who you are, or who you think you are, or who you become, or the fact that you took a team to the N.B.A. Finals. And don't give you the right to tee off, which is kind of crazy. Thinking about it. We're gonna get back to the Celtics and we're gonna get back to the N.B.A. Finals. But I don't stand in it, and I know when the Me Too, which is very important, and that's truth to power. Right? People, they get powerful, and maybe they've been powerful, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole consciousness, a whole class consciousness that takes doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right. And particularly, my whole thing with M.A. is that was you was not, you just got success, and then want to start treating people a way that you should have known better because you ain't been the guy. You were an assistant on Popovich's staff. You had to, and I know doggo well Popovich wouldn't have stood for any of this. I know that. Never mind Becky. I know that. As an up and coming coach on Popovich's staff, you wouldn't have been treating people like that under his watch. He wouldn't have had it. I know that. Without I ain't know your Pop. I don't know Pop, but I know he wouldn't have stood for it. So there's no reason for M.A. to even put himself close to that situation. He left. He got another opportunity. He's doing very well. Great. Celtics need Missoula, right? I've been on this. It's not the roster. It's the coaching staff. You know? And this, you know, where we are. I'm a man without a country, frankly, because I'm going where Tibbs is going. I'm lean, you know, I'm staying with my Knicks just out of I don't even know what the heck is going on. Bring in Jason Kidd. You know, I don't even know. Talk about feeling betrayed. I don't even know. I don't even know. But I'm rocking with the Knicks. I'm hoping for the best. I hope they get J Kidd. Tibbs gets his next opportunity. We move forward from there. Okay? But again, the Celtics, what I'm saying to you right now, and on this point is I'm getting a little concerned because you let Daddy Warbucks steal Jeff Van Gundy and make him an offer. And you said, we're not going to pay that, so you can go. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about that. Because they needed Jeff Van Gundy this year. Charles Lee's different. Charles Lee got another opportunity, you know what I mean? You couldn't, you know, he wanted to be a head coach. So, you know, in that situation, you look at like you can match money. And that's what, by the way, that's what the Golden State Warriors did with Kenny Atkinson. Right? He was out to be the next coach of Charlotte. And the Golden State, we're going to match the money. We're going to match the money. And do you really want to go to Charlotte? We'll pay you as much as you would have made in Charlotte just to stay with us because you're that valuable. The Celtics wouldn't do that with Jeff Van Gundy. Concerning. Well, no. Missoula needeth helpeth. The organization needeth helpeth. Okay, you need somebody, analytics, whatever. Somebody in the foxhole to sit Jason Tatum down and to sit Jaylen Brown down and to have the gravitas, the experience, and to say, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. This is what's going to make you successful. Okay? All the rah-rah and the go win, that doesn't, you know, when the rubber meets the road, you need that individual to get through and to connect it, to show that person what they need to do, how they need to do it, and why they're going to be successful when they do it. Okay? Right? That's what Rick Carlisle is doing. That's what this new coach, you know, young whippersnapper for O.K.C. is doing under the capable leadership of Sam Presti. That's what's needed to be successful at the end of the day. I might have repeated myself in saying that. I don't care. This is what the Celtics need to do. Anything else? It's closed. It's closed. Closed. Okay? Right? It was a stroke of luck. Would the Celtics have been championship contenders and possible, you know, if without Drew Holiday and they still had Bragdon, like they could have won a championship without Drew Holiday and with Derek White and with Brogdon and stuff like that. But with Drew Holiday, they are the favorites. They might have won a championship without Drew, and they might not have. Right? That Celtics team with Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and the others going up against Denver with Mike Malone, I favor Denver. You put Drew on that team, I favor Boston. Okay? It's just that simple. It's just that simple. I don't care. Second apron, whatever. You're gonna take a hit. I don't care. New owners, you might have to take a year of hit with under the second apron. You might have to do it and win a championship. And then have guys, i.e. my New York Knicks, restructure their deal. That's what's gonna have to happen. Do we need a second apron? I was fine with the way it was before. I'm not, I wasn't, second apron. I don't think we need a second apron in the NBA. I'm saying we as if I'm a board member. It didn't, the system, the luxury tax was fine the way it was before, in my view. Now, Marcus Smart, yes. The Celtics weren't winning a championship with Marcus Smart. Or they weren't going to be the favorites. Derek White is a better fit, right? Marcus Smart, defensive minded, and by the way, that's the thing, because Derek White can play defense as well. Is he an NBA Defensive Player of the Year? No, but he's a good defender. He's a serviceable defender. He can guard multiple positions, and he can score. He's a better Mark. They're both good scorers. But Marcus, Derek White can score just as good as Marcus Smart, or vice versa. Marcus, I would favor White as just a scorer. He was averaging 14 points with San Antonio before he came over. But the thing that he brings to the table that Marcus Smart struggled with for years, Derek White is a pass-first scorer. Derek White is going to give the ball to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and allow them to execute the offense and play off of them. He's not going to be out there taking shots in crunch time just to be taking shots, which Smart struggled with for years. KP is not going to be healthy. He's got to be load managed. He's got to be 65 games max. That's why, he can theoretically take less money to stay with the team. If anybody's going to take less money, it's going to be Crispy P. If he come in talking, I need, then he can go. I need my mark, then you can go. Okay? All right? Drew, Derek, JB, JT. That's the core. Crispy, work with me. Pritchard, work with me. Everybody else, you're working with me. And it may be a situation where their bench is going to, you know what I mean? They're not going to be able to, whatever. They're going to have to get, discount deals at the trade deadline to people come in. It's hired guns, fine. But they want to get down with all this craziness that's going on. The Knicks getting rid of Tibbs, not having a plan B. Dallas shipping Luka out, and being gifted the number 1 pick. Sacramento getting rid of Mike Brown, and then just bringing in the Bulls team like that's supposed to help them. It's just a lot of teams and things are going behind the scenes. People don't like each other. And, a lot of divorces taking place, whereas, you're all fired up and, okay, we're going to get rid of that person. You know what I mean? And then we're going to do this. We're going but what's the plan B? Sacramento, dumpster fire. Okay? Am I going there with my Knicks? No. All right, but you get rid of Tibbs, you bring in Taylor Jenkins. I don't know if you're better next year. I said what I said. Jason Kidd, okay, you could be better. Because Kidd understands offense and he can get through to these guys. Okay. But any of those other coaches, meh. Maybe, maybe not. Right? Celtics, you fool around, with this analytics stuff, and we're going to bring in this player because the analytics say that it's not going to work. No. Drew Holiday works. He's an all-star level player that is all-star level unselfishness. I'll say that again. He's an all-star level player. Drew Holiday is an all-star. He's not an emerging star. He's an all-star. But he has all-star level unselfishness. Okay? Can't appreciate and understand just because he's only scoring 12 points a game. Because he's not even trying to get buckets because he wants the team to work. He'll get buckets when he has to get buckets. Particularly with JT being out, he can score. Right? Your offense is now is going to be offensive load with him, White, and JB are going to all do more offensively because Tatum is not there. He can do that. But with all of the firepower they had, he was willing to let Crispy P shine, let everybody else shine, and focus on just letting them shine. And I'll do the dirty work as he did, right? When they beat Indiana, swept them, gentlemen, whatever it was. How many freaking games did he get a steal or did he get an offensive rebound in that series. Just like when he stole the ball from Booker in Game 5. Just little things that decide games. Good question. Good question, Chris, about Cooper Flag. I like Cooper Flag. He's the pride of Maine. I like him. He's number one pick, on and on and on. Cooper Flag, you know, right, I don't see, right, like, he's going to be good. He's a good kid. What am I trying to say? It's going to take him some time in the West. I don't see Cooper Flag coming into the Western Conference and just lighting it up. Like people talking about Larry Bird, pump the brakes. And I don't, he's not on Luka's level either. Right? It's he's not. Cooper Flag he's big, obviously. He's fundamentally sound. He's a good, he's not explosive. Cooper Flag is not explosive. So for all of the things he does, or maybe he is explosive. But I don't see him with all of his, you know what I mean? He has all the skills and he's big to do it, but is he a point forward? He's a small forward that can score, obviously, but he scores. It's just going to be interesting, and he did his thing this year in the ACC, and Duke's team was loaded, right? Keith Van Horn. That's a good comparison, I think. I like the Keith Van Horn comparison. Like Larry Bird, we're not even going there. We're not even going there with Larry Bird. Now, if he's, you know what I mean? If it's like, if Cooper Flag stays at Duke for, and be like, like he could become but Larry Bird, matured in college, so he came into the NBA like fully formed. Like same thing with Keith Van Horn. Keith Van Horn did his 4 years at Utah. He comes into like Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan did the 4 years at Wake Forest, so he's coming into the league with that training. Michael Jordan, 3 years at UNC. So Cooper Flag right now, no, he's not him. He needs some time. Like remember, AD coming out of Kentucky, redshirted his first year. What am I saying? He's not Wemby. Right? Wemby comes in unicorn. Like unicorn. San Antonio limiting his minutes his first year, but he just came in and could do it. Now, I think Cooper Flag can, he's coming into the West, so he's coming in to a loaded situation. And then there's the team is in flux, right? He's got AD, what the heck is he doing there? Kyrie, what the heck is, so he's not coming into a great situation, frankly. You got two guys that are supposed to be winning now, but that's not even the best duo in that conference, not even close. And they're not necessarily thrilled to be there. Right? And then you just throw Cooper Flag into that mix, and he's like, okay, so, like, what do we do? So, yeah, it's going to take him some time. That's no knock on him whatsoever. You know what I mean? But he's not. Yeah, I think Wemby is. I don't think anybody was saying he was Wemby, but just for a number one pick, he's not a number one pick for me. That's just going to come in and just start lighting things up. Like the other thing about Cooper Flag that kind of where he's different, I have to say, is like he's a mid-range to the basket player. That was my critique why I felt that Duke down the stretch blanked. Cooper Flag, the shot, when they're down one is a fadeaway contested shot. Houston's already a good defensive team. You're fading, it's like Cooper Flag, you need to get to the free throw line. Like, I need you to take, like, Cooper, like, that's what I'm saying about Cooper Flag. Right? In a must, and that's again, we're not making comparisons to goats, but Michael Jordan at North Carolina, like as a freshman, you know, not just a game-winning shot, but like he playing with James Worthy, playing with Sam, Sam, like I don't know if it's like Sam, like I keep saying like a lot, and that's not necessary. Michael Jordan was explosive, exceedingly fundamentally talented with just supreme athleticism. I'm not seeing 5-star athleticism from Cooper Flag. Like gazelle, bunnies, and what that translates for me, like that shot that he took, and I'm not penny pinching, and I'm not splitting hairs. You know, he didn't. And again, it's a fade away. Like he couldn't get over. He couldn't lift over that defender to get his shot off. Right? Or if not, to me, like take it to the rim. Make them like take off on somebody. Right? Cooper Flag has the size. He's 6'8", 6'9", but like a Larry Johnson at 6'4" could jump over or jump through you. So that's the question mark. And I said what I said, folks. And I will come back to this. Okay, but Will, with his size as a small, he's more of a small forward. He's not a point forward. He's not initiating the offense. You're getting him the ball on the short corner in the high post to be able to go to work. Okay, and so yeah, he'll be a good player. First year, just learning the ropes. Second year, start scoring 16, 17, 18, 30, you know what I mean? But Dallas has a lot to do because the team doesn't make no doggone sense. Got two veterans that don't, not sure what the heck they're doing there. And then you got this young phenom. Or young number one pick, whatever you want to call it. All right. And on that point, I think like Dylan Harper is a player that people are kind of going to get to know. Out of Rutgers, Ron Harper's kid, 6'3", 6'4", lefty point guard. He's another stud. Ace Bailey's been having some problems. Ace Bailey, 6'6", 6'7", scorer. But Ace has been having some issues with just maturity, his interviews. That team didn't make the tournament, which is crazy. So we'll see. But those three, Coop, Ace, and Dylan, really talented, good background, strong fundamentals. When I say strong fundamentals, I'm talking more Dylan and Ace. Excuse me, Dylan and Cooper. Ace, I got my questions. And they'll come in and contribute and be good, but I don't see any of them. They're not generational. Not a Wemby, not a Duncan. No. Okay, so we've been here. I gotta look up Carter Bryant out west. I'll look him up. Gilbert Arenas' kid, is intriguing. his size. He's like 6'6", 6'7". Gil's 6'3", so he's bigger. And then just exceedingly fundamentally sound. Arenas. Um, maybe a little bit more explosiveness. So we'll see. Arenas, the young Arenas, obviously AJ DeBansa, Cameron Boozer. Cameron Boozer is, and that's my thing I'll just conclude on this point. 2 hours, SandCity Sport, beautiful thing on this episode, and we still got to get to Slice of Life. A lot of Slice of Life to get to. So a beautiful thing. Summertime, the weather is good. That's what I'll say about Cooper in relation to what am I saying? Well, I look at Cameron Boozer, right? Carl, who, you know, and he's not, you know, jump out of the gym, but he plays to his strengths. Right. Yeah, Gil's son is gonna be, gonna be a freshman in college, so he's got a year. He wasn't, fortunately, in the car accident. He's got a rehab, but he didn't have any structural damage. Fortunately, nothing broken, nothing torn. So that was a really good fortune. Shout out to the Good Samaritan that came and helped him out. Got in a car accident, car caught on fire. But I'm really interested, because he reminds me a lot of Cooper. He's got the size, he's got the fundamentals. He's good personality, team first type of a guy. But again, as I say, when the rubber met the road with Cooper Flag, high leverage situation against elite defense, he struggled. He struggled. And that's where I'm saying that Cameron Boozer at Duke, what I think was going to, is that he's just going to dominate inside. Like dominate. Like Zach Edey, just high post, down low. We're going to spread it out. He's he can step out and shoot. He can, if you double, he's going to pass it. He can hit that jumper from the short corner. He can step out and shoot a little bit, 3-point line. He'll work on his three. Is he a 3-point specialist? No, but that's my thing. Whereas, just moving it around and just getting it to him on the block and just being like, go to work, get buckets. Just man body and right? Either you're going to foul me or I'm going to the free throw line. You double me, you're gonna get, because again with Cooper, and that's why this Duke play infuriated me. He had the big man as well, right? Like Duke, and they had the guard, the point forward that was big and burly, and down the stretch they're just shooting these, like they didn't put Houston in a position, put pressure on Houston for them to foul and take the game, So Cooper in the N.B.A., what I'm saying is, okay, so he's athletic. So, but where is he going to get a for sure bucket? Where can you just give Cooper the ball, i.e. a Luka Doncic? Oh, you give the ball to Luka 1-4, and he puts that defender on an island. Points are going to be scored. If you give the ball to Luka on the block, people talk about, oh, Luka. How does Luka use his body? Something that LeBron James has only done very recently. Luka's been doing it since he stepped into the league. Yeah, he's husky. Okay, so I'm going to take you onto the block and get buckets. Because you maybe can jump higher, you may be quicker, but I'm keeping you on my hip. Right? Luka, like it's funny, it's crazy, like when they pressure Luka, when they try to, and he just laughs. He puts a smile on his face. Okay, I move you here. Okay, I move you there. Like, you're not going to take me out of what I'm doing. I don't care. You know what I mean? Kawhi, whoever. I'm getting to my spots to shoot my shots, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? That's what I need to see from Cooper, who is not, he's not jumping over people. Good question. Really good question. Is Tyler Hero more athletic than Cooper Flag? Right there, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to take a yes. Yes, yes, he is. Because, and again, like, you know, their verticals might be simple. Like, Cooper's not jumping out of the gym. And I'm not trash. He's not jumping out of the gym. Right? But you look at Tyler Hero, how he elevates on his shots. Right? Ha, 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 ha. And then pop, pop, gets to that and then shoots over people. Right? He elevates over the defense. Okay, Chris, you might be of a different mind on Cooper, on Tyler being more athletic. Um, I say yes because I want to see Cooper shoot over people. Right? I see him taking a lot of just, like Larry. I don't see him getting. That's me. Right? I see him shooting over smaller people. But what, that's how I feel about it. Is Tyler Hero more athletic than Cooper Flag? Tyler Hero is not, dunking, he's not playing. He's a little bit shorter, first of all. He doesn't play above the rim. Um, that's kind of, I think does Cooper Flag play above the rim? Obviously he can dunk, he's 6'8". Right? But I didn't see tremendous amount of footage of, like, he got dunks, obviously, but I didn't see footage of him. Okay, here's what I'm saying. Does Cooper Flag play like Charles Barkley in Philly once he got healthy? Right? I saw Cooper this year on a talented team, like, you know what I mean? Wop, wop, wop. Just cooking inferior defenders. And then because they were so talented, like getting into the seams, I'll get my dunk there. You know what I mean? Like, here's what I'm saying. You is Cooper Flag more athletic than Grant Hill? That's the comp right there. All right, that's the comp. That okay. Let's talk. Now let's talk. Have this conversation. Tyler Hero. Okay, fine. He's probably more athletic than Tyler Hero. Okay, it feels like I'm bashing Cooper. Because. But is he? Can he play like Grant Hill played? Okay, because that's how he's being talked about. Right? Is Cooper Flag a better prospect than Grant Hill? But again, right? We're talking Grant Hill, who did 4 years at Duke, versus Cooper Flag coming out as a diaper dandy. And I think people, you know what I mean? No, he's not. And me and Chris are having this conversation. Other people, SandCity, baby, it is what it is. It is what it is. We on this checkout. We going late night. It is what it is. Appreciate folks checking in. We can take Bamboozled off the screen. Right? So that's my comp. I don't think he's Grant Hill. Okay? And the reason he's not Grant Hill is because he's only did 1 year. Grant Hill did 4 years, and you can't make that up. But I think he could evolve into, right, that type of a player. But it's going, Grant, it's going to be it's different, right? Because Grant Hill was able to become a point forward at Duke as they won the first two. He ain't no Kawhi. He ain't a lockdown defender. No. I like the Kawhi comparison because they both get money in the mid range. Both of them do their work in the mid range. So that yes. Is he a lockdown defender? No. He's a serviceable defender. He ain't no lockdown defender. He's not, giving LeBron, prime LeBron, Miami LeBron trouble. But in terms of scoring efficiently in the mid-range, can shoot the three, is a good free throw shooter, can attack the basket, yes. I like the Kawhi, but he's not the defender that Kawhi is. Now, maybe, and I'm saying a lot about Cooper now, you know what I mean? But maybe, you know what I mean? He comes into the league, or maybe he comes in on a revenge tour. Okay? But I didn't see that this year. But I like, again, as I said, I like the Kawhi stuff relative to Kawhi, in this analytics, baloney, faloney, threes or layups. No. I'm cooking you from mid-range. I'm cooking you. Either I'm going to get to the elbow and hit that shot, free throw line extended, it's a free throw, it's a bucket. Okay, you press on me, I'm going by you to the basket, I'm attacking the basket, going to the free throw line or dunking on somebody, and they can both step out and shoot that three. Big, you cross match up, you run them in some screen actions to get the small defender. So, yes, Kawhi offensively, not defensively. Yeah, 50, 40, 90. There you go. There you go. Okay, over to the NBA Finals, folks. And no end in sight, please. It's summertime, baby. It's summertime, folks. You understand? It's summertime and the living is good, right? I gotta savor all this. It's a beautiful thing, folks. And people know what I'm talking about. Working class heroes know what I'm talking about. Your first, you know what I mean? You gotta just savor that first week of vacation. It's never gonna get better than that. Right? I mean, maybe it might, I don't know, but that first week, it's just right. That's that's where the Cape Cod Kid is out right now, and we can come back. We'll get into July, the summer proper. In July, you want to hold on to July as long as possible in education. Once you hit August 1st, you just start feeling it. You just start feeling it. But now, this first weekend, this first week of summer, because it was a long school year. It was good. It was long. It was long. My working class heroes out there, like when you're in the, you know what I mean? You just trying to make it to the weekend. Trying to make it to them long weekends. And you just trying to make it. And this school year was like that. It was beautiful. It was, you know what I mean? I have a get-to job. I'm not saying, but them Thundercats gave your boy a run. Them Thundercats was on. They was, and Thundercats United. Woo! They was on me. They pushing. Right? It was a lot of nostalgia. It was a lot of karma because I was that spirited student, that opinionated student. You wasn't gonna tell me, and that was me. That was how I was, and years later, how I pushed my teachers, and they're teachers and they got good jobs and they got, you know what I mean, and I'm got to get my education. It came back around. What goes around comes around. It came back around. I saw a lot of me, and I got a chance to work in a great community. Worked in New Bedford, which is a small city. We say we're a small city in Barnstable. We're not a small city. New Bedford is a small city, and great kids. They meant well, but woof, they had that. They was in that Rumspringer. They was in that adolescent, that P. Woo, that teachers, parents, grandparents. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And so when I say I'm thrilled to make it to this is right when you really work and exert yourself and really go at, I'm not saying I didn't build, a monument. I'm not put myself up there, you know what I mean? But a good when you have when you work hard and you work through your contractual time, and then you come into your vacation and you've worked hard, it's a good feeling. So that's what I'm, not to brag, humble, but that's where it's at. Take it in. Remember this. You know, uh, Made it to this checkpoint. So all of that is good. So you wonder why SandCity we doing 1 o'clock in the way, baby. Summertime right now, folks. Appreciate Benito. It's summertime, folks. Weather is nice out there. We're gonna get Willis out. Willis has to move around. Hasn't been. He got to get his gobble gobble, but we're gonna let him out to run free, to move around. I got to get something to eat. Got to get up tomorrow. A lot of great things going on. Sun is shining. It's a beautiful thing. So we're coming to the. We're gonna get into. We're gonna get into our slice of life now, folks. We conclude with slice of life. Things that's going on, perspectives. Okay. So let's start. You got to pay that cost. Let's start with a conversation as we get into our slice of life now. Let's start with a conversation about greatness from somebody, there's no doubt about it, that he achieved such and said.
Understand the concept of being great. You know what I mean? Because I was young. When I started out, I was 15 when I won the World Juniors. I was really young. I was really talented. So I didn't have to work as hard. It was just talent. So I was winning and winning and winning. And I remember when I got to the professional level now, and I felt like it was just going to be easy. And I got onto the stage and I would go to meets and I would lose. And I was like, this is strange, this is new, you know what I mean? So it's something that took me a while to understand. And then when I started working with Coach Mills and he kind of sat me down and explained that, listen, everybody who's a professional has talent. So it's who works the hardest on their talent that will be the best. And that's when I kind of understood that you can't get to the top with just talent alone. You need work, you need sacrifice, you have to be dedicated. And it took me time, but I learned along the way and I got better over time. I didn't understand the concept of being great. You know what I mean? Because I was young. When I started out, I was 15 when I won the World Juniors. I was really young, I was really talented. So I didn't have to work as hard. It was just talent. So I was winning and winning and winning. And I remember when I got to the professional level now, and I felt like it was just going to be easy. And I got onto the stage and I would go to meets and I would lose. And I was like, this is strange, this is new, you know what I mean? So it's something that took me a while to understand. And then when I started working with Coach Mills and he kind of sat me down and explained that, listen, everybody who's a professional has talent. So it's who works the hardest on their talent that will be the best. And that's when I kind of understood that you can't get to the top with just talent alone. You need work, you need sacrifice, you have to be dedicated. And it took me time, but I learned along the way and I got better over time. I didn't understand the concept.
Facts. Usain, multiple. Chris, yeah, we got to talk baseball. We gotta talk baseball. We're gonna do that. So much in the world of baseball. The stars: Shohei, Judge, Tatis. Mets, Yankees, Dodgers. So we're gonna dive into baseball tomorrow, along with the NBA finals. Very true. It is summertime, so we gotta get the baseball going on. And again, now the process, the hard work.
I was not Kobe. Kobe was something else. He was the guy. Like I said, when we're in the club, that motherfucker's in the gym. Oh shit. You know what I mean? And that's what separated him from a whole lot of dudes, even myself.
The fact of the matter is I'm still trying to get better. So if I'm playing against a weaker opponent and I start coasting, I'm building nothing but bad habits myself. If you want to play at an excellent level, if you want to do something excellent, you have to be excellent all the time. It's a way of life. It's not just I show up on Monday and be excellent. No, it don't work that way. You got to be excellent across the board. Right? That's how you build habits. When excellence becomes a habit, then that's just who you are.
I was not Kobe.
Run it back.
Kobe was something else. He was the guy. Like I said, when we're in the club, that motherfucker's in the gym. Oh shit. You know what I mean? And that's what separated him from a whole lot of dudes, even myself.
The fact of the matter is I'm still trying to get better. So if I'm playing against a weaker opponent and I start coasting, I'm building nothing but bad habits myself. If you want to play at an excellent level, if you want to do something excellent, you have to be excellent all the time. It's a way of life. It's not just I show up on Monday and be excellent. No, it don't work that way. You got to be excellent across the board. Right? That's how you build habits. When excellence becomes a habit, then that's just who you are.
That's just who you are. Again, concept of greatness. No lies detected. Let's stay there, but then talk about it from a different angle. So we keep moving and grooving with our slice of life. Okay? So how do you interact now that you have achieved this different level? Let's go ahead.
You can love them, but you can love them from a distance too. And there are a lot of my family members that I've had to learn to love from a distance. They call me, I'm like, yeah, I'm here. You need something, let me know. But I can't have you in my life because you're toxic. That's right. You're poisonous. And there's nothing wrong with people's like, what's wrong with you? You're getting away from your family. The hell with you. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm not going to do that. You can't choose your family. You can love them, but you can love them from a distance too. And there are a lot of my family members that I've had to learn to love from this. They call me, I'm like, yeah, I'm here. You need something, let me know. But I can't have you in my life because you're toxic. That's right. You're poisonous. And there's nothing wrong with people's like, what's wrong with you? You're getting away from your family. The hell with you. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm not going to do that. You can't choose your family.
Okay. Again, it's not just all sunshine and rainbows. My take on that. When you do have transcendent success, right? Folks have to, you know what I mean? I wasn't given. This is not inherited. This has been earned. Okay, so it's not Casino Royale just because, I still have further levels to get to. That's how people stay successful, not just get successful. And sometimes it's hard for people to understand. And okay, so we got to move a little bit different. Okay. Again, talk about that shift in gears.
You're more famous than your bank account?
Hell fucking yeah. It's not even close. If you got paid for every picture, every time you said hi, every time you hugged the baby, every going through the airport, every time you, hey Fat Joe, you'd be a gazillionaire.
They know me everywhere. And it's crazy. The way I knew that I was famous was I flew to Morocco. It's a true story. This is Makadesh. They pick me up, but I get in the back of the truck. Nah, I'm telling you.
Man.
They drive out into the desert. About an hour and a half in, I start saying, damn, they caught me. The Taliban. No, I'm telling you, there ain't nothing out there. There ain't a water fountain, gas station, nothing. It's straight desert.
What you doing there?
I was going to do a show. These guys wasn't talking English and they drove into the fucking desert for 2 hours straight. And I'm thinking in my head,
It's over.
oh, that's it. It's over.
It's over.
They got me. I swear to God, I was that scared. I thought they had me. And then we pull up and it's like a fucking oasis. They have villas. Most beautiful shit in the world. 2 minutes ago, I thought I was kidnapped by the Taliban in the middle of nowhere. And she looks up and go, oh, it's Fat Joe. That's how I knew I was famous.
Appreciate you, Emmett.
You ever think that you're more famous than your bank account?
Hell fucking yeah. It's not even close. If you got paid for every picture, every time you said hi, every time you hugged the baby, every going through the airport, every time you, hey Fat Joe, you'd be a gazillionaire.
They know me everywhere. And it's crazy. The way I knew that I was famous was I flew to Morocco. It's a true story. This is Makadesh. They pick me up, but I get in the back of the truck. Nah, I'm telling you.
Man.
They drive out into the desert. About an hour and a half in, I start saying, damn, they caught me, the Taliban. No, this is, yo, I'm telling you, there ain't nothing out there. There ain't a water fountain, gas station, nothing. It's straight
What you
desert.
doing there?
I was going to do a show. These guys wasn't talking English and they drove into the fucking desert for 2 hours straight. And I'm thinking in my head,
It's over.
oh, that's it. It's over.
It's over.
They got me. I swear to God, I was that scared. I thought they had me. And then we pull up and it's like a fucking oasis. They have villas. Most beautiful shit in the world. 2 minutes ago, I thought I was kidnapped by the Taliban in the middle of nowhere. And she looks up and go, oh, it's Fat Joe. That's how I knew I was famous.
You're famous. Okay. Things are different. Let's take a look, staying on that topic. Let's take a look at a little bit of culture shock. And again, appreciate Emmett. Fox Radio Listener Podcast. Host collab. I got to learn more about this. I'm interested. Listener Podcast Host collab. Okay. Picking up what you're putting down. Got to learn more. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about different environments.
It was different. Like, as soon as I get there, dudes had on Sperry's. I'm like, man, what the fuck y'all wearing? Like,
What are those?
you know, I wear J's every day, Jabos, Forces, hats, all this stuff, and they got on Sperry's, polos. I'm like, man, what? And they were just different. It like opened my eyes because they was driving G-Wagons and Hummers and all this stuff. It's a private school. So I started seeing that and I'm like, hold on. You know, you meet people who parents are doing some crazy stuff and you can't even believe, like, bro, and they just living life. Like, yeah, my parent worth 80 million. My parents worth 200 million. You like, damn, for real? Like, I don't care about this. You need something to eat, Jeff? Like, yeah.
Hell yeah. He ain't turning out nothing but your collar.
I was like, shit, let me get some Sperry's. Let me get a polo. I started trying to blend in, but it was a culture shock at first. I go to North Carolina. It was different. Like, as soon as I get there, dudes had on Sperry's.
Appreciate
like,
you,
man,
Emmett.
what the fuck y'all wearing? Like,
What are those?
you know, I wear J's every day, Jabos, Forces, hats, all this stuff, and they got on Sperry's, polos. I'm like, man, what? And they were just different. It like opened my eyes because they was driving G-Wagons and Hummers and all this stuff. It's a private school. So I started seeing that and I'm like, hold on. You know, you meet people who parents are doing some crazy stuff and you can't even believe, like, bro, and they just living life. Like, yeah, my parent worth 80 million. My parents worth 200 million. You like, damn, for real? Like, I don't care about this. You need something to eat, Jeff? Like, yeah.
Hell yeah. He ain't turning out nothing but your collar.
I was like, shit, let me get some Sperry's. Let me get a polo. I started trying to blend in, but it was a culture shock at first.
Jeff said, let me get some Sperry's. Take a polo. I mean, that sounds good. Yeah, always available, you know, to participate, certainly. And you're welcome here on SandCity. To jump on. Appreciate it. You know, it's got folks, man, Chris in the chat, adding the value. helping to steer the conversation. So, yeah, I will follow up and appreciate it. But that struck me, Jeff Teague talking about being down there and on Tobacco Road, at Wake Forest, obviously Duke and Carolina, NC State in the mix, and just from the standpoint, is you get to rub elbows with that old money, and a bit of culture shock, but then also, right, perspective, because you meet folks that have it all, but do they have purpose? And you don't have as much, but you have a vision, and you're striving. Yes, Chris, the Devers trade, folks in Boston are still trying to deconstruct that. So, some of the best, you keep trading for the future that, is slow to arrive, is I think how a lot of people feel with Devers being traded. There's friction in the organization. It's going out, to San Fran. Doesn't mind playing first base. Red Sox asked him to play first base. It was a firm no. So there were some things, and he's, he kind of walks to the beat of his own drum, super talented, but, not necessarily a team first guy. So that's the best reporting that I heard about Devers, in that super talented, and just for whatever reason, but known to kind of be, a soloist, an individual. But this first base thing, they needed him to play first, and there was just some fierce resistance. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So they got prospects back. And then he goes out, to the left coast, and now, okay, I can play first base. Shout out to the late, great Kobe Bryant. Definitely missed. Never forgotten. Be playing Kobe clips in perpetuity. No two ways about that. All right, two more on the slice of life, folks. Getting some perspective.
The courage to go after what it is that you truly want to do. That's the thing that separates people, because people work hard all day long,
They
but
don't be doing nothing.
what it is they're working hard, but they're working hard, and at the same time they're believing that it's not possible for them.
To
You
go
know what
to
I'm
the
saying?
next level.
It's like, what do you have faith in? And it's not just faith in God. I'm talking about on a level of faith in you. Like, do you really believe you can do that? Are you willing to sacrifice to get that? Or are you just going to keep this job that you hate because you're afraid? Like, those are those moments.
Take that shot.
You got to believe in you, man. And a lot of people, that's the issue that they have. They don't believe in themselves. That's a big part. Because if you don't believe you could do things, you're not going to try nothing. For me, that faith in God, that belief in myself, that what's inside of me, the God in me could come out. I could do whatever I put my mind to. Like, you need that.
If you got that passion, you really put in that work.
You got to have passion. You got to have belief, man. You have to have the courage to go after what it is that you truly want to do. That's the thing that separates people, because people work hard all day long,
They
but
don't be doing nothing.
what it is they're working hard, but they're working hard, and at the same time they're believing that it's not possible for them.
To
You
go
know,
to-
Stop it right there. That's most men live lives of quiet desperation. Most men live lives of quiet desperation and die with the song still inside of them. Henry David Thoreau.
it's like, what do you have faith in? And it's not just faith in God. I'm talking about on a level of faith in you. Like, do you really believe you can do that? Are you willing to sacrifice to get that? Or are you just going to keep this job that you hate because you're afraid? Like, those are those moments.
Take that shot.
You got to believe in you, man. And a lot of people, that's the issue that they have. They don't believe in themselves. That's a big part. Because if you don't believe you could do things, you're not going to try nothing. For me, that faith in God, that belief in myself, that what's inside of me, the God in me could come out. I could do whatever I put my mind to. Like, you need that.
If you got that passion, you really put in that work.
You got to have passion. You got to have belief, man. You have to have the courage to go after.
So, no lies. Very strong. Very strong. Okay. I run that Thoreau clip I have the Thoreau for me. Also, um, yeah, Thoreau resonates, and good movie, Fight Club, Tyler Durden. Okay, Middle Children of History. No Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. Shout out to Tyler Durden. Okay, he's talking about, especially get older. Now hey, you got to pay bills. 9 to 5, you got to pay bills. But I just think that the work life balance, okay, gets to a point where you start feeling like you're on a road to nowhere, and you have to get back to those positive and productive things that you want to do. Add value. Okay, one more.
Just live for the moment. They don't get caught up in being lit. You got to think about the future. Think about when you're going to be a family man. Think about your kids. Think about your mom. Think about your staff. Think about your crew. Think about yourself and everything you affect when it goes all wrong. Not just live for the moment. They don't get caught up in being lit. You got to think about the future. Think about when you're going to be a family man. Think about your kids. Think about your mom. Think about your staff. Think about your crew. Think about yourself and everything you affect when it goes all wrong. Not just live for the moment.
Jada, speaking it. I said it's gonna be the last clip, but we have to incorporate. We got to incorporate. We bringing it back to the Commonwealth. This is the last clip. I'd be remiss talk about the Celtics. Talk about JB does a lot in the community. Theus Foundation, lot.
Celtic star Jaylen Brown and his close friends celebrating Juneteenth at the Boys and Girls Club, giving away 100 pairs of his signature sneaker.
I got great people around me. I met some great people here in Boston, so shout out to them. Shout out to Huguito.
Yeah. So we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing this community stuff and keep our community engaged.
Also in attendance today was Jaylen's mother, Michelle. She told me it is important to reiterate those messages of positivity, especially kindness. And on days like this, it's all the more important. In Dorchester, Celtic star Jaylen Brown and his close friends celebrating Juneteenth at the Boys and Girls Club, giving away 100 pairs of his signature sneaker.
I got great people around me. I met some great people here in Boston, so shout out to them. Shout out to Huguito.
Yeah. So we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing this community stuff and keep our community engaged.
Also in attendance today was Jaylen's mother, Michelle. She told me it is important to reiterate those messages of positivity, especially kindness. And on days like this, it's all the more important.
So that's where we're going to, yeah, man. JB means a lot. Word indeed in the city. Very active related to education in the schools. Okay, Celtics parade. There was a bus of kids from the Bridge program in Boston. They were in the Celtics parade when they won a championship. So he talks it, but he also walks it. Talking about, Black Wall Street. The racial wealth gap. And not just, in terms of investing in communities. So there's the infrastructure for sustained growth. Roman Anthony, got to look this young man up. Cooper Flag on the 2028 team. I don't know. It's going to be tough. We'll see how he shakes out, right? We'll see how he plays. And we'll see what the composition of the Team USA is. Because LeBron kind of took over, Chris made a good point about, Cooper. LeBron kind of took over and fielded the team to get the USA back into gold. So we'll see what, because LeBron's not going to lead the next team, how Grant Hill is going to compose it. Cooper's going to have the ball first, he's not just going to have to show well early on in the league. But that'd be big if he is able to put himself in a position. So we'll have 26 and 27 and 28. We'll have 3 years to build up the resume. To be representing the United States on the Olympic stage, to bring back that gold medal. Yes, indeed. A good episode 240. Appreciate you, Chris. Appreciate Benito. Appreciate Emmett.